Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel, By Hook or By Needles. I am Sam, and today I'm going to do a tutorial for a crochet stitch. Now, this crochet stitch, I just got to get it up the right way. Yep, this crochet, I get the cat hair on it. This crochet stitch was I found in a crochet book of stitches, and it was called the Marguerite stitch, and I looked at it and I thought, you know what, that looks an awful lot like the star stitch, and I think it is. I think it's just called the Marguerite stitch because the book I found it in was an old UK book. So it had all the UK terminology, and so it stands to reason it would have perhaps a UK name. What's interesting is my grandmother, who was from the UK, because that's where I was born, she actually taught me how to crochet, but when she taught me the US terminology, and I didn't even realize it until many, many decades later. And I had always assumed that I'd learnt crochet with the UK terminology. But anyway, so star stitch, it can be a little bit tricky. Hang on, I'm just going to move this lead, otherwise I'm going to knock it flying. I have started this so many times. That's just between you and me. I'm expecting visitors in the cat form, so we'll see what happens. Oh, and it's chilly today. It actually got to -1 degree overnight. For those in the US, that was 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Anyway, we start as usual with just a slip stitch. Now, the yarn I'm using is actually an 8-ply, which is a 3-weight. But I'm using a 4.5mm hook. And the reason I'm using a 4.5mm hook is because the book I got this stitch from recommended actually going a little bit bigger than what is recommended for the yarn. So yeah, that's what I did. That reminds me, I need to find a little scrap piece of yarn. Am I going to be able to find a scrap piece of yarn? Oh, I'll just cut it off this. I'll use that as my scrap piece of yarn because I want to show you how to, know where to go with the stitches. I think that's the hardest part with this star stitch, is just knowing where to put the hook, especially in the first star stitch of each row. It can be a little bit tricky, but hopefully we'll get around that, and I'll show you, and I'll slow it down, and if it's not slow enough, just slow it down even more with your YouTube settings. Now, as well as telling me to go up a size, it also recommended that the finished project be something like a face cloth or a washcloth or maybe a placemat or a coaster, because it's basically saying that this star stitch, because it's quite sort of thick and padded, it can be a lot of work for a really much bigger project. So you wouldn't want to do this, say, for a jumper or a blanket or anything like that, because it really would get very tiresome, I would imagine, by the end. And because it is in clusters, you would end up using a lot more yarn perhaps than you would a normal stitch. So yeah, hopefully I had 2 new cameras and I can't get either of them to work satisfactorily, so I'm back on my phone. So yeah, I don't know, seems to work better for me. Anyway, the stitch. We do our slip knot or slip stitch, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to chain 21. The recommendation is you chain an odd number of stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. The narrative says that, to cast on or to chain an odd number of stitches. It tells you just to add one more. Okay, and as usual, I'm going to turn over and go into the back bumps, and that's my preference. If you prefer to hold your yarn, start here and just go into the chain, into the side of the chain like that, that's fine too. Do it whichever way is comfortable for you. I just prefer the back bumps. It can be a little bit more time consuming, but I do prefer the back bumps because I just think that the bottom looks nice and neat when you're done. So the first row is really simple. We go into the second back bump from the hook, which is this one, and we're just going to go into that and make a single crochet. So here we go, a single crochet, and we're going to single crochet all the way across till we get to the end. Now this is a 2-row repeat, so every other row is a row of single crochet, and then the rows in between are the star stitch. Now I've done the star stitch a while back, and it was in a blanket. It was only like one round of this blanket, so I managed to do it, but I've got to tell you, I did find it a little daunting, and I don't know whether it's because I was doing it in a blanket and it was new to me, or whether it was because the written instructions were not quite as clear. I really couldn't tell you, but on doing it this time from just written instructions with pictures, I found it a lot easier to understand. So I'm hoping if you have struggled or do struggle with the star stitch, that this may just help you improve that a little bit. So here's hoping that I can make things a little bit better. Okay, so we're almost at the end, and pick up that last one. Okay, so now what I'm going to actually do is make sure I've still got 21 stitches, and the reason I'm doing that is because there's nothing worse than getting a couple of rows in and going, oh, I've not got the right number. So I'm going to come back to the beginning. You can see all the V's along the top, and you can see V's along the bottom. That's why I like going into the back bump. But anyway, so I usually count in twos, so I'm going to go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 21. Once again, I count the V's rather than the stitches, because when you look at a stitch and you're looking at it side on, they tend to sort of run into each other, and unless you're quite good at reading stitches, which not many beginners would be, I just find it easier just to turn the work slightly and count the V's, and that's just to me a quicker way of doing things. Okay, so now the first star stitch of the row is probably a little bit tricky than the rest, because it's different obviously to the rest, and I say obviously, I'll show you why it's different to the rest when we do our second star stitch. So for our first star stitch, we're going to just chain 3. There's a first chain, there's a second chain, and there's our third chain. Now we are going to be working into the second chain and into the first chain, and the third chain will actually be a V, like it'll be a top of a stitch for us when we come back in the other direction. So that actually will count as a stitch. So I'm going to turn our work, and to do this we need, now these are half double crochets in a cluster. Basically that's what a star stitch is. You're putting 5 half double crochets together in a cluster, but rather than with a normal cluster all the stitches go into the same stitch, in this case they don't, they all go into different places. So there's my first stitch, my first chain. I ignore that. I'm going to go into my second chain, but I'm going to loop over first because it is a half double crochet, and I'm just going to go into that chain, not the back bump necessarily, because you know it's just a side stitch, side sort of thing. Now you can see I've got 3 loops on my hook. I'm not going to finish the stitch because, like I say, this is 5 half double crochets together. Then I'm going to loop over again, and this time I'm going to go into my first crochet of that 3 crochet that I did to start the row. So I'm going to go into that, and I'm going to pull up another loop. So I've now got 5 loops on my hook. Okay, so next thing we do is we're going to work into 1, 2, 3 stitches, and into each stitch we are going to pull up a loop and leave it. So we're going to yarn over, I'm going to go into the first single crochet, pull up a loop, yarn over, I'm going to go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go into the third stitch and pull up a loop. Now if we look, I should have 11. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now, the easiest way I have found, you might be different, it's certainly do what's ever easiest for you. But I usually tend to, with my middle finger and my thumb, is I will hold my work quite sort of firmly, and sometimes even just pull down slightly on it just to sort of elongate the gaps underneath. And I will grab the yarn, and I'm going to have to pull this yarn through all these loops at once. Well, I say at once, that's the instruction. But if you can't manage to do all 11 loops at once, then just go through 2 at a time, you know, or 1 at a time. So, you know, and you go, okay, I got through those 2, okay, I got through those 2, I got through those 3 or whatever it was I took, you know, and you can just go like that, and that's not a problem. That's just, you know, just another way you can do it if you can't manage to do all at once. But certainly pulling down, or you know, firmly holding those other stitches with the thumb and middle finger, or whichever fingers you've got free on your left hand or right hand if you're left-handed, it'll work, whatever works for you. So, and then I do a chain, and that single chain just closes off the star stitch, and we've done our first star stitch. Now this little space here, I'm going to call the eye of the star stitch, just because that's what I'm going to call it, just because I think it's just better than, you know, I don't know, not giving it a name, I suppose. So, and we're going to be working into that, and that's why I've given it a name. So if I say the eye of the star stitch, or the eye, you know this is what I'm talking about, this little space just here that we've created when we've done a single chain. So to work in our second star stitch, obviously we don't have a chain of 3, so we haven't got a chain of 3 to work into, so we have to actually work into the side of this star stitch instead. So we're going to yarn over, and the first is going to go into the eye, and we're going to pull up a loop. And I see how I'm sort of turning the work like this. I find that sort of makes it a little bit easier too to find where you're going to, and then you can, you know, just maneuver back and forth with whatever's easier for you. We're going to yarn over. Now the next spot we're going to go to is in here, and see how that's between the fourth pull up a loop we did and the fifth pull up a loop that we did. There's a gap there, and that is the gap we are going to go into. So we're going to yarn over, and I'm going to go into that gap. Get the cat hair out of the way. No, it doesn't want to come. I'm going to pull up a loop. Now I have 2, 4, 5. So I'm going to work into the next stitch. Now the next stitch has already got a stitch in it. This is where we pulled up the loop from the previous star stitch. Well, we're going to work back into that stitch again. So I'm going to yarn over, and we're going to go into that stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and we're going to go into the next 2 stitches which haven't been worked into. Pull up a loop, yarn over, in we go, and pull up a loop. We should have 11 again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, and yarn over. Always have your hook facing down. It just makes it easier. If you have your hook facing up and you start pulling, your hook is just going to grab all your loops. Similarly, if you have it sideways, once again, it's just going to grab all the loops. But if you turn it down and you're holding, that firmly there, you can just go through all in one go, and then do a single chain to close the second star stitch. And we've done a second one. Easy peasy, she says. Now, I'm going to make it a little bit easier with a bit of scrappy cotton, or scrap yarn, I should say. It's not necessarily cotton. I can't remember what it is. What is it? No, it is acrylic. So we're going to yarn over, and we're going to go into the eye. That's our first one. Now we're going to yarn over and go into that space between the 4th and our 5th pull-up stitches. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to go into there and pull up a stitch. Yarn over, pull up a stitch in the stitch that's already got a stitch in it. I'm saying stitch an awful lot, aren't I? So we're going to yarn over and go into there, and we're going to pull up another loop, and then we've got 2 more stitches left that we have to go into. So I'm going to yarn in and pull up a loop, and this is where I'm going to just place this, just to show you a way of marking between those 2 stitches to find where you have to put your hook. Okay, then I'm going to yarn over, and then I'm going to go into the next and final stitch and pull up a loop. Okay, yarn over and pull through all 11 and close. Okay, now we've got this little one, and this is actually between that 4th yarn over pull up and the 5th yarn over pull up. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to go into the eye, pull up a stitch, and now I've marked that stitch. See how I've marked it? And if you actually pull, so this is if you're having trouble finding the stitch. So if you pull down on it, it will make it easier to find if you're having trouble finding this one stitch. So you just yarn over, get in there where the yarn is, pull up a loop, and then you can take this out for the next time. Then we go into that stitch which has already been worked into, pull up a loop, and then the next 2 unworked stitches. Pull up a loop and pull up a loop. And then once again 11 stitches, loops, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yarn over and pull through all 11. Chain to close it off. Now I've done 4 star stitches. And I'm just going to keep working now till the end. You can either speed it up, slow it down, do whatever you wish. to follow along, or yeah, if you don't want to watch it, yeah, skip right through. Okay, pull up a loop. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of speed. Now I can usually tell without counting that that's right, just because it almost fills my whole neck, throat, whatever shaft of the hook. Okay, and then I'm just going to pull through. If it was looking a little bit empty, I'd know that perhaps I have missed one, or I have it looped over or something like that. So into the eye, into that area between those two, into the stitch that's already been worked, and into the next two. I think that's one of the reasons why they suggest you use a slightly larger hook as well, because it just makes those spaces a little bit bigger and easier to find. If I have a look now, I know I need to do more, because it looks a bit empty. So I do one more. Now we're doing the last one, and with the last one, you have to remember that that is a stitch there. We need to go into there. So we haven't got just one stitch left, we've got two. And sometimes it's a bit tricky to remember that, especially when you're a beginner. You might sort of think that you're a stitch short, but you're not. You've got to work into that as well. Oops. Trying to get into the stitch. There we go. And pull through all 11 and close it. Now once again, I'm going to have a look at the top. Now at the top, this is going to be a little bit harder to count with the V's, because the eye stitch, or the V that is formed when you did your chain to close up and form the eye, is a little bit smaller than the other one. So when you're counting, and remember when I said we did 3 chain, 1, 2, 3, and I said to you the top chain, the third chain, is actually counted as a stitch. Well, this is where we count it as a stitch. So that's actually 1 stitch, and that's 2. And we've got small, big, small, big. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and the last one, 21. So we've got our stitch count correct still. So I've just done a row of star stitches, so now we need to have a look and do, we have to do our chain, which does not count as a stitch, and do 21 stitches in these tops of these stitches here. So the first one is going to go into the eye. That's 1. Now the second one, if we turn, whoops, I'm not doing a half double, we've got to go into both of those legs, through both of those legs, both of that, top of that V. Pull up a stitch, pull through together. Into the eye, turn our work, then into the eye. It's just a single crochet all the way across, and once again when we get to the end we should be able to count to 21. The stitch count will not change. And it's a lot of work, this stitch, so you really do want to count, or have stitch markers to help you count. You know, if you have got a lengthier piece, you know, like for a placemat or something, it's a really good idea to use stitch markers to sort of make so that you know in between stitch markers would be so many stitches, you know, 20, 10, whatever, and it just makes it a little bit easier to count, and also makes it easier to find where the error is. So, and when we come to the end, remember what we said when we started this row? We had the big V, so we're going to put our single crochet there, and then the top of the chain of 3 that we used to start the row with, the last row with, is a stitch. Now it's just easy. I mean, you don't have to try and go into the top of the stitch, the top of the chain. You can just go straight into that little gap and pull up, and you've got a single crochet. So once again, we turn. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 21. Now that's the 2-row repeat. The 2-row repeat is just simply a row of single crochets, as I've just done, and the other row is the star stitch. So if you want to continue, just rewind to the beginning of the star stitch, or whichever part you want to rewind to. It's just a repeat of star stitch and then single crochets, and when you're done you'll end up with something like this. And like I say, it's nice and thick, so it would be ideal if you did it in cotton for a washcloth or a face cloth or a coaster or something like that. And it's a stitch that really stands alone. I don't believe this stitch really needs variegated yarn. A slow transition yarn, yes, it would look lovely in that, but you don't want a yarn that's going to be changing every sort of couple of stitches, because every time you pull up a loop, you don't want the yarn have changed color from the previous one, because then you're just going to have a very, very busy looking piece of fabric, unless of course that's what you're going for. Once again, that is really all personal preference, but I just like to sort of give you suggestions or ideas and tips, and if you take the advice, that's great. If you don't, that's great too. Like I say, not the crochet police here. Anyway, so that's the star stitch, or the marguerite stitch. Margarita? Was it margarita or margarita, I think, stitch. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a thumbie if you did, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future stitches that are coming up. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.